And we'll probably, I mean, we have 16 people now, but we're probably going to have quite a few more as they jump on. But the whole point of jumping on today was like, I really just want to figure out how's everybody doing in their specific, scenario, situation, what part, and just tell us what's going on. I'll give you a brief idea of what I'm doing. Pretty much nothing. um, and my friend from Sydney, Mike Hurst, he sent me a picture of Bondi Beach, and it's just packed. I guess from yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, like that's crazy. So there's stuff like that going on. I'm trying to be very, very diligent. I we just cleaned the inside of our vehicles yesterday, scrubbed everything down, found M&Ms from like 5 years ago that our kids shoved between the seats and stuff like that, and just sanitized everything. We probably sucked about 10 different viruses that aren't coronavirus out of there, so I'm happy about that. But other than that, I'm not doing much. I'm just trying to abide by the rules, and it doesn't seem like everybody's doing that, so I'm a little freaked out from that. As far as training, I think we went for a run, and we just, if we see people, we run in the opposite direction, stuff like that, but nothing exciting going on. And I'm just trying to talk to people and see how they're doing. So I wanted to get, as many people as possible to contribute and tell me what they're doing and how it's going. And I'll start with my friend Rob Panarello, because I talk to him every day pretty much. And
there, Derek, we lost you.
Sorry, had a technical glitch there, but I'll get Rob to start. He's in Long Island, New York, and he's dealing with a lot of stuff too, and he's got a lot more wisdom and a lot more wits about him than I do. But Rob, how are things going for you? How are you doing?
It's difficult. It's stressful right now. We had a furlough about 1,200 people in our company yesterday. The difference between furlough and firing is we made an executive decision with regards to when you furlough somebody, you want them back, right? They're eligible for rehire, versus if you fire somebody, you probably don't want them back. And so, you have in a financial situation, you have an expense line and you have a revenue line. And when those two lines cross, essentially, you're going to go out of business. And we've been through this before. We've been through this before with 9/11, other situations. And so I'm very optimistic they're going to get out of this. But what we did was we furloughed about 1,200 people. And we pay them all their unused time off. And we're going to pay for their medical benefits, including those people that participated in that financial endeavor. We're going to pay for everybody's medical benefits. And we're hoping this thing doesn't last too long, 2, 3, 4 months. And at the point in time when we flatten out, we can start treating patients again, so to speak. We'll start to rehire. I think in the whole economy, there's going to be a big rebound effect. I think that, and just everybody knows I'm not an economic guy, and I am not infectious disease physician by any means. So I just think that, in my field, and I think in related fields, right now people cannot do elective surgery. So if there's no surgery, there's no patients, and people are very concerned. So they're not going to go to physical therapy, and they're not going to train at our performance center. And so those numbers are sliding down drastically. And so from the months of not doing surgery, from the months of not seeing your dentist, from the months of not training or going to the gym in a public setting, so to speak, not an institutional setting like, maybe it may occur at the Naval Academy, getting your athletes back, that type of thing. And they'll be anxious to go too, I'm sure. But there's going to be this rebound effect. So all the surgeries that weren't done, let's just say March, April, and May, if we get over this thing by June, you're going to have your normal caseloads that you would normally have in June, and plus the backlash of all the time You didn't do surgery. All the dentists are going to be backlash. All the gyms are going to be backlash to people that couldn't work out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I really think there's going to be a strong rebound effect. The concern is, how do you navigate through the process of the unknown? We don't know how long this is going to take. I go back to 9/11. You go back to 9/11, unfortunately, is a catastrophic event, but the damage was done. So you could say, okay, this is the cost moving forward to rebuild. These are the teams of people we need to rebuild, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have the finish line with this yet. And so, and I do believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. So the key here is just to hang on as best you can. And if you can hang on, I think you're going to be in real good shape. I do.
Is there any sense, Rob, that people aren't taking this seriously enough?
I believe that. And that's a big concern I have, because if you look at China, right, we're not that type of a government, right? We're not a socialist government. So they can mandate you're not leaving your home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're getting stronger. We're probably the strongest mandates right now in the state of New York, because we have the most cases in the state of New York. So let's say we can resolve this condition in New York in 2 or 3 months. Everybody abides by the rules, et cetera. And I'm not picking on any state. I'm just ad-libbing a state, right? If the state of Georgia is not stringent about this, and somebody from Georgia flies into JFK, we got the whole problem. That's a carrier of we got the whole problem starting all over again. So, you know, I don't know how to, I think you can control this. I don't know how you eliminate it. And again, I think what's going to happen over time is we're going to learn how to treat this, which is different from a vaccine to prevent the virus. And I'm hoping that, just like influenza, this thing has its course and its season, and that you know, COVID-19 has a season as well, and that season ends. You know, just like that's what I personally am hoping for, because I don't know how you control this in the United States. If this thing has a season and it can leave, so to speak, and then come back next year, well, then maybe next year at this time we have a vaccine, or from the people that have had the virus, you know, maybe some immunity has developed, you know, in our overall population. So, but again, who knows? That's why people are panicking. That's what's going on. There's no one knows where the finish line is economically, in healthcare, in health in itself. No one knows where the finish line is. So that's the problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah, I think the two things, the health piece and the financial piece, are huge for people, and
Yeah.
and you know, I don't know where the end is right now, but thanks, Rob. I'll get back to you. Let's jump around here. I talked to Eric Marriott. Eric, you're in Vancouver too, and you have this vantage point from your place to look down at the transit system, the SkyTrain there, and you're seeing people still mingling about and, you know, getting into groups. You know, what's your sense of it? You know, are people getting it?
Yeah, I am.
I get it.
Day 7 of a 14-day like proper quarantine from being in the States. So I'm sitting here at my desk, and I've got this window view of the SkyTrain and the buses in Vancouver, and it's been I don't think fast enough realization from people on what they really have to do. Like, as of yesterday, you know, there's still like a fair number of people on the SkyTrain, fair number of people on the bus, and, you know, people have to go places. I get it, but it doesn't seem to me, just from my little window view here in Vancouver, that it's quite picked up in terms of that social responsibility thing yet. You know, I operate a physio clinic here in Vancouver, and we closed on Tuesday, but there were still clinics open yesterday in town. So I'm not quite sure how people are justifying that, but we'll see, I guess, and how people respond in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, you know, are people doing the right thing? And then are they prepared to last financially? And, you know, we're talking about, you said there are some businesses that were just walking away from their businesses now.
Yeah, there's a yoga clinic in Vancouver that'd been there for 25 years that I think on Wednesday or Thursday permanently closed already. I mean, who knows how much in response to this that is or whatnot, but you certainly wonder if that's like they're just living on an edge and they closed because they couldn't foresee this being good cash flow wise. But I mean, for our physio clinic, we tried to get the telehealth thing going like right away. See if we can just keep something coming in right now. And so we work closely with a group of surgeons, and so yeah, same thing. Like their volume has just gone way down. We're hoping some of those people that now aren't going to have elective surgery will sort of keep doing rehab and sort of plod along with us a little bit, just so we can keep things going. But it's hard to say how sustainable that is. I mean, it's definitely going to be way less than business as usual.
Yeah. Ryan Banta, how are you doing? How are you doing out there in Missouri?
Well, pretty good, except I've got two tiny tornadoes that seem to make more mess every time I clean up my mess at the house. And the wife has been able to work from home, which has been relieving because, obviously she works in a real big office with about 1,000 folks in the building. So for her to be able to work at home just kind of puts my mind at ease pretty good. I've been doing almost daily videos for like our workouts of what they should be. And I send that out to my kids via, email and on Facebook. I've made those public. So that's been, at least for me, cathartic and something that I can still feel like I'm attached to the sport and attached to my kids, even though I can't see them every day. We're still in limbo about whether or not we're going to go back to school face-to-face. We are going to start e-learning next week, but there have been a number of school districts in our area that have actually canceled for the whole year. And a neighbor state in Kansas, their governor already shut down their entire year. They're done academically. So it's kind of this weird limbo of what are we doing? How are we getting it done? And especially for those that, we don't have any care that we can do for kids right now. Our kids are at home. So balancing that life of working remotely and then my wife trying to get her stuff done. She's been putting in about 70 hours this last week. And next week, we spin up back out of our spring break back into the regular educational schedule, which is going to look really strange. And our district did not do a great job of setting up, our remote situation ahead of time by handing out laptops or iPads or those kind of devices. So they kind of had to scramble a little bit. So we're not even really sure how we're going to grade things. And then they asked all the teachers to come back Monday and Tuesday. But I mean, I don't know how many teachers are going to show up. And if they have a kid, who's going to watch their kid? You can't have grandma and grandpa watch the kid. And people are very concerned. I know that pretty much everybody on this Zoom probably seen the same thing in the grocery store. I mean, shelves are completely empty. And the only way to get into the grocery store and get something is to go in early when they open up. But then when you go in early when they open up, it's a huge line. So it's nearly impossible to social distance. So it's been an interesting outside experience. And at home, it's been challenging just in the concern of the limbo that we're in and things like that. But from a track and field perspective, at least I feel like doing those videos every day and getting communication with my kids and my student athletes and all that kind of stuff has been positive considering the circumstances.
Yeah. Do you feel any, I was going to say, or ask people, do you feel any anxiety over the situation? Or are you handling it pretty well, Ryan?
I mean, I kind of knew this was coming. So I was always kind of operating under the idea, and I've told people, of course, when I bought 2 months of food and I said, hey, I'm never going to be that guy. And I told all my colleagues about it. They kind of laughed and people were telling me to chill. And, this guy's, we didn't believe you. And then, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king a little bit. So I guess there's some satisfaction in kind of predicting it. That's actually helped me kind of at least deal with the process of knowing that, we're not going to get through the season. We're going to have our school year interrupted. And so I'm not disappointed because I kind of expected lockdowns and quarantines and things like that. And so far that's been the case. Now, where we go from here, that's got me a little stressed because, misinformation. If you watched the presser yesterday with Donald Trump and Dr. Fauci, and they're talking about the different kind of medicines, and people just don't even understand like what's going on, and so people are jumping on things and arguing about things they shouldn't. And so social media, I've been trying to avoid watching the news as much as possible, other than that particular, daily update from our, president and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I've been okay. It's just the limbo in the future is what's got me the most bothered.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Kevin Tyler, I chatted with you briefly yesterday. You have obviously a different situation in some regards with, athletes, and Kevin works at Altus. And, how are you kind of handling this right now? And how are you kind of talking people off the ledge and keeping everybody calm?
Yeah, excuse me. I think a lot like Ryan, I kind of expected this. I've kind of seen this coming for the last 2 months. I've been working with a number of Chinese athletes this year. I had a group of 4 in, and then I had another group of 6 in, who actually I just took to the airport this morning at 2 a.m. They're on a flight back to Beijing. We just shut down practice on Tuesday, but I kind of foresaw the fact that I didn't, just being in touch with the Chinese, I knew where we were headed with this, and I was very doubtful that the Olympics would be happening. Unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of leadership from the IOC right now on this, but they're always slow to move. And to a degree, it's understandable, because I think, like any kind of trauma, you're going to go through a number of levels psychologically. And I just made a commitment to take myself to ground zero right from day one, because I felt pretty confident this is where we would end up. So, but the athletes aren't there. We had our last practice on Tuesday. We had them together. We briefed them. A couple of them were emotionally hit pretty hard. And now because we're in a state of emergency here as well in Arizona, everyone's pretty much housebound. It's voluntary still, but I can see it. The number of cases here isn't high right now, but obviously California is right next door. Yeah, so I mean, it's been hard that way. EXO's closed. We were in good communication with them through this process, trying to understand what they were going to do. And for us, obviously, buying your own track is not the best, probably, business decision to make. Not a lot of revenue comes off of it. So we're dependent upon the community. And, unlike Canada, like I grew up in Vancouver, there are virtually no tracks here that are public. They're all on school property, largely on school property. And our kids have been, even if they go out by themselves, people are coming onto the grounds and kicking them off. They've been kicked off in grass fields. So it's really difficult for them to train. So the athletes are dealing with this emotionally. They're trying to do some type of physical preparation because they still believe the Olympics is going to happen, but there's nowhere for them to train. So it's difficult from that perspective.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So they can't even just walk onto an open field or a track and just get their own stuff done by themselves. They can't even do that, eh?
Right. So yeah, and I was kind of doing what Ryan was doing, and so we kind of sent out a rollover schedule where they can kind of complete the workouts as their conditions allow them. And one of my girls texted me and was like, "I just finished this workout, and someone's kicking me off the track right now." She's out there by herself. So, yeah. So that's where we're at. So it's hard to, I think as Rob said at the beginning, I think the real anxiety from this comes from, if this is 2 or 3 months, we'll be okay. Stu, I, and Andreas took the company over about 3 years ago. We spent quite a bit of time the last 3 years diversifying our revenue streams just because of the issues we had 3 years ago. And so we're a lot more stable than we were. Our digital platform is a lot more robust. We'll be okay, even without athlete revenues. We're definitely trying to take the high road on all of this. I just gave a large amount of money back to the Chinese yesterday because I felt like that was the right thing to do. We're playing the long game, but if the virus becomes 12 to 18 months of waves, I don't know how many small businesses can survive that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good points there. Like even the I was thinking maybe somebody else can jump on this, maybe Rob, but you know, switching to different platforms, you know, digital, and then I started wondering, well, do people have disposable income to spend on stuff like that even? You know, and when does, and like you said, if that is extended, if this whatever quarantine or whatever you want to call it is extended, lockdown, you know, when do people run out of money, and you know what happens then? You know.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's going through my head. Actually, our sales have been quite good in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But at what point do people's, you know, disposable incomes run out? So, yeah, I mean, that's real.
Yeah. Rob, do you have anything to add to that in terms of your thought process around?
Yeah, I could just say that, you know, things that we've done is we've contacted landlord, like I don't know how it is outside of New York, the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, because that's been my focus, in Massachusetts, because that's where we have footholds in our company. I can tell you that, you know, people have been real cooperative. So if you're in business, if you approach your landlord, they're willing to work with you. We haven't had really any problems with any of our landlords, whether they're giving you free rent for 3 months or, you know, and then you pay a balloon payment on the end of the lease with interest. There's very many ways to get creative. You can speak to utility companies. They'll usually work with you. What I caution you on utility companies is if you don't pay your bill and you're out 3, 4, 5 months, you may get put down on the bottom of the list when it comes time to turn everything back on. And now you're ready to go. So I wouldn't just not pay your bills. I'd have communications in that aspect. And then you find ways, you know, we're doing the telehealth. I mean, we plan to do telehealth the second quarter of this year. So we were all set up. We just had accelerated, you know, a month literally. So, you know, but that's not going to make or break us. That's just supplemental for the lasting effort, right? I could tell you that in some areas of the country where they haven't been shut down, workman's comp cases have gone up because have all these workers working 24 hours a day around the clock, stocking, driving, whatever, and they're getting overuse type injuries. So in states where maybe you don't have such stringent shutdowns yet and medical care is available, et cetera, with regards to surgeries and rehab, you know, that's an avenue of business that people are capitalizing on. I can tell you in our state, it's tough. Elective surgery is a no-no in the state. Non-essential businesses are closed. You know, so that's what's going on. And I just think that you have to find methods of supplemental income for longevity and then figure out ways to retain the finances that you have so that you know, you could stretch that out, so to speak. I mean, it's just common sense type things. I can tell you this, I can tell you, we furloughed, you know, 1,200 people. We have a great number, obviously, still employed, and that may happen in waves, right? So if business gets worse and worse, you're going to have waves and waves of businesses closing, firings, furloughing, whatever you want to call it, right? And I could tell you that I didn't get 1,200 responses, but I got a significant number of responses, emails, et cetera. Only one was really negative, if you want to say bitter, et cetera. People understand what's going on. That's what makes this so hard. And I could tell you there've been a lot of tears by a lot of people, including myself. I could tell you that. And it's horrible. But people understand what's going on. People are prepared to you know, to either, I hate to say it, but the possibility of losing their job, those types of things. And you know, obviously for many reasons, the faster we can stabilize this, I don't even know if you have to cure it yet, the faster we could stabilize this and just an upswing, the better off that's an obvious statement, the better off we're going to be. The other thing I could say to everyone on this is that communication is imperative. What Ryan said before, what he's doing with his athletes, people are afraid. We're going to get out of this. The scary thing about this is the unknown, you know? And, you know, I've gone in, my personal experience is 9/11. My personal experience is coming in as a CEO of a company that was going to go bankrupt, and we turned that around. And we'll get this done too. But the scary part is, and is I'm just repeating, and I may repeat further on as we go through this, is no one knows where the finish line is. And so you need to be reassuring, have communication, look out for the people that you're responsible for, whether it's family, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's your employees, whether it's your ex-employees. Let them know that it's going to be okay. It really will be. And the longer this goes, the tougher it's going to be to believe that. But we will get out of this, because if we don't get out of this, it's going to be the end of the world. I'm being facetious, and maybe not, but it's not going to be the end of the world. We're going to get out of this one way or another. Just hang in there.
Yeah, I think you should run for president, Rob. Can we talk to some of the people working in college settings? Because I know we talked to you last week and how that's going. And I mean, this was normally a busy time for all of you. Let's start with Brian Miller at the Naval Academy. What are you hearing? What are you doing? What are you trying to do with the student athletes?
So right now our student athletes not here, and we don't know when that timeline is, when they're going to be allowed back. So everything that we're trying to do with them is workouts that we're providing for them. Within those workouts, and we touched a little bit on it last time, was trying to keep them outside, keep them active, but at the same time putting some type of threshold so they're not just going doing 4-hour workouts. Because my athletes at Navy, that's exactly what they'll do. We don't give them a timeline. I mean, they'll go crazy, overboard on it. Everything with the spring, that right now we'd be having spring football. That's almost 100% not going to happen. Anything beyond that is still really a question mark. Right now, academics is the big thing that we're trying to make sure that we do stay on top of. Because their level of fitness, they'll get that back. We're good enough with what we do. We have good enough athletes. They'll get that back. But academics, if they start struggling with that, which it's all going to be online right now with the professors. If they start struggling with that, then everything else, with their load and their stress is going to be amplified by a lot.
Yeah, that's a unique situation, right? It's not a normal. I'm not going to say a normal college situation, but in your place.
No, nothing. On a given day, nothing there is normal. But there is a sense of a collegiate setting, certainly from the athletic standpoint. Bouncing back to a couple points you had, it's really eerie. But our men's lacrosse team, right before this really popped up big in the U.S., our men's lacrosse team got hit with the norovirus. And that's kind of sent out a big panic at the Naval Academy. And we had to quarantine everybody on the lacrosse team. They had to cancel a bunch of different things. We got sent home for, I think it was 4 days. But again, everyone followed what was presented out, and it worked. And then, the men's lacrosse team recovered. They came back. They started practicing. And then obviously we all know what happened, most recently. But, so, I don't want to say we've been through it, because we really haven't on this type of level. No one has. But it was just a very, very, 0.01% glimpse of what we are going through.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, well, I wanted to ask a couple others now. Thanks for that, Brian. Chris Roof, what's going on your end? Baylor.
Well, we're probably pretty similar to what Coach Miller talked about. We're essentially shut down. The Big 12 is shut down all athletics activities, anything related to that, until March 29th. And if I'm a betting man, that's going to get extended out a little bit longer. So we're not allowed to have anybody in our facilities, anything like that right now. In fact, Waco, just in the last couple of days, closed down restaurants, bars, gyms, all that. So our big focus right now, the school, we were on spring break last week. So they extended spring break to a second week. So this past week we were on the second end of that second week of break to give professors time to go online and get all their coursework prepared for that, which so classes will start back up on Monday, and we will be online for the rest of the semester. Our two really big focus points as an athletics department in this short-term stage here has been athlete whereabouts, knowing where they're at. So we were charged to provide a very regular count to our athletic director of where our athletes are. So are they at home? Are they somewhere else, or are they in Waco? Trying to keep tabs on them to give them as much support as possible. And then the academic piece will be a big thing moving forward, because now you're looking at students are being in campus is closed. So unless you have some type of extenuating circumstance as a student, you're not going to be allowed on campus. So the academic piece becomes big. How do you do tutoring? How can you organize this remotely for everybody to be involved with it and do it at a high level? How does the change to online classes impact the student athlete growth and development, their learning processes? It'll be, for some people, they'll do fine. For some people, it'll be a great challenge to not be able to be in person, have face-to-face communications and things like that with people. So those are the two big things that we're working on getting rolling right now. We've sent out very generic stay-at-home training programs to everybody. We have to be very, very careful with how we're wording things right now due to the Big 12's ruling that no required or recommended activity can take place right now.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about Waco and being holed up for weeks. Anyway, sorry. That was my little... yeah, no, it's one thing I was wondering, Chris, was, okay, so we make this shift to all of this sort of online and interacting with people online. After this is over, are we afraid to go back to like having, educational experiences where we gather and, now that we've made this switch, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't think it'll go that far. We talked as a staff yesterday that some of us have felt that some of our communications with others have been more meaningful now because a little bit more effort has to take place to organize it. But I don't know that face-to-face learning environment will change. There'll be some challenges to work through from an online standpoint of how to best reach people and deliver content and ensure that the learning process is happening the way it needs to learn. And I think, in person can't be beat. And I don't know, I hope that'll stand the test of time, but this virtual world is a little bit going to be challenging for some or all of us, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, definitely. Christina, we spoke with you last week. How have things changed a week later? Is it pretty much business as usual, or how anything new coming up?
So our school campus is closed. All people had to leave the university. There's no more international students staying in the dorms. The main thing that changed was our spring break became, instead of 1 week, it became 2 weeks. But the student population's not allowed to come back and get their stuff. We first told them they could come actually this weekend, come grab your things for the rest of the semester. Now they don't want people coming back to get their stuff. So they're going to extend it in a slow kind of roll. So I think they're going to break it down to small groups of people coming back instead of just the entire campus storming back with whatever they are bringing with them, which is a good move, but just some kids only brought enough home for maybe a week to 2 weeks, and it could be a full month before they get called to come back on campus. So as a student population, that's new for us. So that's hurting some of our student athletes as well. On the sports performance side, only essential employees are allowed to be on campus. So that's our sports medicine and athletic trainers. If they're doing one-on-one post-surgical treatment, so there's no maintenance sessions, no basic PT. It's if you were post-surgical, so an ACL, for instance, if they take 3 weeks off of training, they've got some major setbacks. So if they're around off campus, they live close by, they can come in one-on-one with their athletic trainer. If there's kids off campus still, they can see our sports med for medical purposes. Our sports nutrition and sports psych are doing remote one-on-one sessions. So the way like we're talking now would be one-on-one. With strength and conditioning, it is still spring break. So it's voluntary workouts only. We can't have any contact with our kids. So we send home enough stuff for them to be able to do with either access to a garage gym or a home gym of some sort, and then body weight workouts. So I think the way we're looking at it moving forward, our president of the university let us know last night in an email that he's going to extend us working remotely until April 13th. And at that point, he'll reassess who is essential and who's not essential. I see strength conditioning coaches being not essential for quite some time because there's no athletes on campus. So there's no reason for us to return to campus. But I think the main issue moving forward will be, is our compliance office going to let us reach out to the kids and see how they're progressing? Because if we treat this as summer training, the NCAA doesn't allow us to track what they're doing over these winter or summer breaks or even spring break. So that could slow down us being able to regress or progress our kids in a responsible and professional manner. So then when they come back in the fall, if we're coming back in August, we don't know what they've been doing because it's been 5 months of them maybe just doing body weight. So we're going to focus our attention on sprinting and jumping and mobility. We're not going to spend a ton of time on body weight workouts. They're great, but we're just going to do a nice cookie cutter and then hope that they can get outside. So we're going to have them fill out questionnaires, the kids, to tell us what they have access to. Do they have a backyard? Do they have a field? Do they have stairs in their house? They can run up and down the steps and drive mom crazy. So I think moving forward, it's figuring out what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. And I think we're going to get that information this next coming week.
Have you had any individual athletes reach out to you and say, hey, you know, like this is what I'm doing, or what should I do? Or you have a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have. I think the second day that we were remotely working and the kids were sent home, I had sent out the body weight workout as well as a weight room workout. And one of my field hockey ladies reached out telling me that she crushed her bench. I was just doing a very simplistic 5-3-1, and she goes, I got 20 reps for 5+. And I go, great, I'm gonna up your weights day one, which is great. But at the same time, I wish everybody then contacted me if they had access to a weight room. I've had a couple of my male athletes reach out for extra running workouts prior to them getting their next 8-week kind of packet that we're going to send to them. A couple are very upset that they can't play. I have a lot of international, specifically in the Netherlands, and they're about to go on a full lockdown. So they're concerned they're not going to be able to leave their house. So there's only so many touches you can get with a stick and ball in your house. So they're concerned that their skill level is actually going to decrease. So I can't do anything about that. I'm not their sport coach, but I've become more of a psychologist in this past week, trying to keep them positive, and letting them know that, you know, look, it's a struggle for me too. I'm used to being busy all the time and training athletes, and that's been robbed of me because of the coronavirus. And I've got to find a new normal and something positive to look at each day.
Yeah, that whole piece with the international students, even Kevin talking about the athletes from China, and my wife works with international students, and a lot of their parents are like, you come back to China, we think it's going to be safer there. because we got this, under control, compared to what's happening where you are. So that's certainly a huge one. And like you said, people are kicked out of residence, and where do they go? I mean, do they go home? It's crazy, for for the parents of those kids. Thanks a lot for that, Christina. Thanks for the update. Eric Hernandez, North Carolina. How is it in your neighborhood, and what kind of things are you doing, and how long you think this is going to last?
I have no idea how long it's going to last, but I hope it's short. I mean, I'm similar to everyone else's scenarios where I sent like a Google sheet out, and because I had so many text messages of like, hey, I have a 15-pound dumbbell, hey, I have a 1 kettlebell, or I have nothing, or so I just sent out a Google spreadsheet to Google Doc to each one of my teams, and just said, give me your name, your locations, because then that's going to tell me whether they're locked down a little bit more or if they're under snow. I'm lucky here; it's nice outside, so I've been outside all the time, and I could have kids locally run, if they're outside. But if they're up in upstate New York or something like that, they might not want to be outside running. So, so I'm pretty much getting all that information, and then I'm going to have to make almost like 3 programs per teams. One with absolutely nothing, one with partial, and one with maybe full. And then, I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, okay, I think it might be harder to write at-home bodyweight workouts because, like, well, how do you progress it? Maybe we're doing it. I can give them something to do for 3 weeks, and what happens after 3 weeks? Like, where am I going to progress your your bodyweight squat? Hold it for longer, jump higher or something like that. Doing so that's just the thing. I can get through like the next 3 weeks pretty easy, and then I'm going to start to really have to really think about, okay, how do I progress? Part of it is an interesting challenge, honestly, like having to work away from what I'm traditionally I guess good at, or just traditionally trained at, whether it's just barbell work or whatever, but getting into all the different things that I could do. I'm also a little interested to see, one, first, I feel terrible for all of our athletes that got their spring seasons canceled and all that. But I'm really interested to see what's going to happen next year when you have all these bigger rosters, because NCAA is allowing, people to come back. I wonder what's going to happen with injuries. Are we going to see like a decrease because they're having this longer training period, or are we going to see an increase because they didn't do anything over the training period? So those are some questions that I wonder, because a lot of times you're like, oh, we have so many overuse issues because they have these spring seasons that are just killing it. But maybe if they had some more time to develop, it'd be interesting to see what happens next year as fall and spring sports come back around. But it's going to be interesting. It hasn't really set in either. Like, I still kind of feel like we're on spring break, but then in another 2 weeks, it's gonna be a whole different situation.
Yeah, especially for, like, say this gets extended into July even, and then people come back for football. Like, what's going to happen there? Is there going to be an explosion of injuries because they haven't been doing a lot of the stuff they should do? And yeah, and then I'm always thinking about, okay, so we think we have this under control. Everybody gets back together, training camp scenario, and then there's an outbreak again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's what I was just talking about today. Yeah.
Like, who knows? But yeah, I got that from a lot of people who are like, yes, I'm going to send you what I have to work out with. I have like you said, like a 15-pound dumbbell, a physio ball, and an elastic band. And I'm like, just jump up and down until you pass out. That's probably better. Right. So it's crazy. I'm going to try to get Clint Hazen to jump in. He is in China. We don't know how good his internet connection is and what's being monitored with what you say, Clint, but how's it going there?
Hey, Derek. Yeah, thanks for having me on here, and I hope you guys can hear me okay. And it's good to see everyone on here, and it's good to see everyone is concerned about this. And certainly the last 3 months has been something pretty interesting here. It's certainly something we've never seen before. And I think, like Rob was saying, certainly the unknown is something that still we don't even know here when we'll get out of this. We've been in basically somewhat of a quarantine since January, and a number of the national teams have been in quarantine for almost 3 months. So some of my friends who are coaches, they've been in full lockdown on their training bases for 10 weeks now. So but it's nice to see that the numbers are finally coming down. And you know, I've been reading a lot about like disease curves and stuff like that. And I think if China can give everyone some hope, I hope that it can kind of give some suggestion as to what to expect moving forward. So.
But certainly a lockdown in
Hopefully
China, is probably a little easier to implement, as Rob was saying.
Holy cow, Derek! I'll tell you. I'll be honest. I was pretty nervous the first couple weeks in January. It was pretty extreme, and I'm probably a bit disconnected as well because I'm not on. You know, I unfortunately I'm just learning to speak Chinese, and so I'm not totally connected. But you know, every day we would see fences rolling out, and then there was security guards everywhere, and we had, you know, all these mandatory types of compliances, like wearing masks everywhere. And I shouldn't even be outside right now without my mask on, but you know, it's okay. It's kind of quiet here, but you know, there's security everywhere, and we're seeing these fences everywhere, and we're going through all these quarantine measures. And I was pretty worried for a while there because we didn't really know what to expect, and I was seeing things getting worse daily, and I'm thinking like maybe I should get out of here. But luckily everything has kind of prevailed, and you know, it seems like we're just starting to get back to normal here in Beijing, which is nice. And you know, from a training standpoint, it's been interesting. My training base was on a quarantine, and for a month there I was the only person allowed in and out. I was working working with an athlete there. We're doing a knee rehab on a skier, a 16-year-old skier. So, and one day I was leaving the training base and I wasn't allowed to leave, and they wouldn't let me leave the training base. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And it took almost 2 hours, and we had a number of people at different levels, and finally I was allowed to leave. So I haven't seen my athlete in a month, and we've just been training online. And so everything's been shown. So we'll see, you know, what happens next. Certainly response here, I don't think there's no way this could happen back home. It would be a whole different ball game, I think, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Are they giving you any sort of indication or messages about where this is going there? Like, you know, where they're going to relax anything, or is it just business as usual?
We have no idea. And I mean, Beijing, luckily, you know, the subway was still running, and it was pretty quiet. It was a ghost town here for almost 2 months. And just this last week, it started to come back a little bit to life. You'll see people around, and some of the cars are coming back, and some of the small businesses are opening. But I think some of the cities like Wuhan, I heard they had quarantined 30 cities, and I think they're still under full lockdown. And so a lot of our friends here are coaches and teachers at schools, and they were told that they would have a 3-week warning before they would come back to classes, and they haven't heard anything yet. So I think at this point I'm hoping optimistically that maybe by May 1st we can get back to normal. And you know, but at this point there's been absolutely no sign or no indication that we're getting back to normal, other than just people are starting to come back to life, which is nice, and the weather is getting warmer. So I mean, that's really about it right now. So yeah, been
Wow.
something interesting. Yeah.
Can I ask you one question there? Have you noticed an improvement in the air quality?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Yeah, I've been seeing those stats online, and you know, I hate to say it, but there is a lot of definitely gray, hazy skies, and I'm not so sure it's clouds or rain. But you know, normally you'll get one day of sun, and then it'll get worse and worse and worse for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and you'll get a big, you know, buildup of pollution. Then it'll rain down. You know, don't tell anyone. I'm pretty sure that's acid rain, but it'll rain down, and then we'll have a day. Yeah, you can't speak the truth, but you know, we'll have a day of sun, and then 4 or 5 days of pollution. But you know, we've had like 3 or 4 days of blue skies this week, so you know, it's kind of nice. And to be honest, I shouldn't joke, but I mean, like, Beijing has never been more hygienic than right now when no one's around. So personally, I feel a lot more safe, so that's good.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for that report, Clint. Be safe, eh? Like,
Yeah, thanks.
I'm just waiting for the security guards to like tackle you and club you to the ground because you don't have your mask on.
I know, luckily. I know, I got to keep my looks. I'm looking in the reflection in the screen here just to make sure I don't have anyone. But yeah, it was funny for a while. For a while there, I was getting almost like a PTSD where I'd have people yelling at me like 5 or 6 times a day. I would just be getting yelled at because, you know, I can't understand the sign.
Oh, they got Clint. Sorry. So okay, we'll get somebody else on. Hopefully he's okay. Richard Weeder, can you jump on?
Hi, yeah.
Let us know what's going on in your area of the world, if you can tell people.
So I'm from Loughborough in the UK. We've been going through a week of kind of knowing that the inevitable was gonna come, but trying to keep a skeleton group of facilities going here, and some sports governing bodies, the majority of sports governing bodies, have now removed insurance from coaches, so coaches aren't allowed to be working, which is obviously horrendous and not what any of us wanted, but it actually makes it easier where governing bodies have done that because it provides clarity to people. There are a few smaller governing bodies that haven't provided that clarity, but now with facilities shut, it makes it easier for campus. Some interesting issues this morning. So I've just had some messages saying that people are now taking practice outside. The weather's a little bit better here. It's a little bit more sunny, but not observing appropriate social distancing. I think there's an interesting question. How much responsibility do we have for a group of adults who, after all, can walk into the street? It's not illegal to go outside, and they can walk up and touch each other. That's not illegal either. You know, we want them to be doing exercise and staying healthy, but yet they're congregating in groups that are too big. So interesting question about how much moral responsibility sport has to be supporting the national cause versus recognizing that people are adults. So that's something we're just working through right now. But I think the biggest thing for us was when the gym was shut, because that was our kind of highest risk facility, with obviously people touching stuff. Well, we have two big gyms on campus. When they were shut, that's our highest risk area, with people touching stuff. Although we've been really scrupulous about hygiene, there's always going to be that risk there. So that's kind of a relief that we know that that's done now.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like, okay, now we have like a starting point where like, okay, people are, well, I mean, even in Vancouver, people are still gathering. It's ridiculous, but at least we have a point where we can go, let's evaluate it from here on and see if we're actually controlling this thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we've been looking for. And people were starting. So I work a lot with governing bodies, and on campus we have lots of partners. People were beginning to privately say, on the one hand, we want to keep athletes training, but on the other, this would be so much easier if everything just shut down, because it would remove these problems, and it's the responsible thing to happen. So I think there was a big, like, Thursday, Friday, people were getting cross and, oh, we want to keep training and you can't stop us. And then when the Prime Minister announced it last night that it was closing, there was upset, but there was also quite a lot of relief here.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but after hearing what Clint is going through there, and how they have very stringent restrictions, and they're still thinking, what, maybe May 1st? That's a little scary. What do you think, Richard?
You mean in terms of time?
Yeah, just in terms of, like, when's a safe zone? When's a safe time?
I mean, we're just getting through the Easter holidays.
Yeah. I hear you.
Honestly, I really, really don't know. The Prime Minister here is talking about 12 weeks. So that's the kind of peg that he's put on it in the UK, is everybody do your best for 12 weeks. And then we'll see where we are, and we can see where we can turn this. You may have seen in the news, so he's putting a lot of store on this. I guess it's an antigen test, is it, to see if you have had it and recovered? So he's not only looking at testing for people who've got it, but also people who have had it, and that's part of his strategy here. I don't know if there are any other English people on the call, but closing pubs was a massive thing for the UK, because going to the pub is like national pastime, and there's a lot of populist politicians out there saying, "Oh, we can't close our pubs; it's the end of the world." But it's really not the end of the world.
It's like closing a hockey rinks in Canada.
I guess so.
Yeah. Tom Crick, you want to jump in? You're in Qatar. Tom?
Sure. Yeah, sorry, 2 seconds. Hey, hi everyone from Qatar. I'm Tom. It's been quite interesting here. I was actually on training camp in South Africa till Monday this week. We had 3 competitions in South Africa. We did the first 2, and then we decided to come back home. We flew in on Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at midday they shut the airport. So no one can enter Qatar anymore. My wife is in the UK. I tried to pay $2,000 to $3,000 to get her back in time, but they shut the airport before she was able to come back. So really interesting situation. Two things I would say that are kind of interesting. One is that I have a team of well over 20 coaches working for me. And coaches, are not good at technology usually. And it's something we're learning to do now. And we're using something called Microsoft Teams. There's another alternative application called Slack that's free if you want to try and use it. And we're using that to work together collectively to develop a few things. One thing that we've got to do is we've got to recruit the next load of athletes for starting in September. And we are supposed to give the deadline for that is April the 15th. And we have some testing data on them, but we haven't done our selections like we usually would. So we're going to have to choose our next year's athletes based on only data, not based on coaching input. So that's going to be a very interesting experiment for us to do. And so I reckon one benefit of this, one positive thing to take away from this will be how to use technology and getting people up to scratch on using technology. The second thing that, where's my notes? The second thing I can talk to you about is what happens after coming back from training, after significant layoffs. In Doha, we have a 2 month like summer period, and we collect extremely good records. We have a huge medical staff here, and usually you get a spike in injuries 7 weeks after coming back to training. That's what we've had for the last 7 to 10 years. The only time we didn't get that was 2 years ago. We had the World Gymnastics Championships in our school, and we had to shut the track down for 6 weeks. So we trained outside in the grass, and then our injury rate was down by almost 60%. So what I would say is when you come back, for sure, try and change your training, use softer surfaces. I think this will have a big impact upon your ability to remove non-contact injuries, repetitive strain injuries, especially if you're involved in track and field like I am. So they're the two things that I would say. The third thing that's interesting is I've been reading loads of briefings on this. One of my other areas of interest is policy and politics to some extent. And the thing that everyone's talking about now is is there going to be a second wave? Even if we get through this first one, there's probably going to be a second wave. And this is what people are worried about. And we were talking about, is it right for people to, in the UK, they haven't shut everything down as quickly as they have, for example, in Doha and maybe China. But they're talking about, if you do shut it down too quickly, then will there be a second wave? Because there'll be no herd immunity from people being immune from the first wave of the virus. So I personally think that this is, right now, it seems like this is going to happen again. So I think the key thing now is to put in place the policies that you need to try and deal with this for an extended period of time until maybe we get a vaccine or some kind of drug development that can help us to keep this under control. So I think it's not going away anytime soon. And I certainly think it's going to be a very challenging time for us, the economic side of things also being the other thing that no one's really sure about what's going to happen right now. So they're the three take-home messages I would take from this for myself.
That's awesome, Tom. So yeah, definitely it's like a 12 to 18 month proposition for us, eh?
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it's not going to be until like Christmas next year. I think we're not going to know what's really happening.
Yeah, and do you think that'll make people gun shy about just resuming normal activity at all?
I don't think it's going to make people shy about resuming activity, but I think it's going to cause problems in terms of, for us, the main issue is access to facilities like some other people have been having. It's people at higher management making the decisions about what to do. And the reality is no one knows what to do. And every situation is going to be slightly different with the type of government, the facilities, all this kind of thing. So I think what we're going to have here is we have a giant experiment across the world about which policies work and which don't. And I think that's going to lead to what people do and how people feel in the future, not really anything else. I don't think you're going to look at this and say, this was right, this was wrong. It's going to be this natural experiment that's going to teach us what we should be doing.
And even the testing, ongoing testing, it has to probably go forward, and just so we can have an idea of what the numbers and is it coming back. And
yeah, I mean, the thing in Korea, apparently they've been doing very well is the number of tests they've been doing, and I think that's key. And I know certain countries doing more tests than others, And like in Qatar, if you go into any building, I had to go to try and get some antibiotics the other day, and going to that building, you had to be tested. And if your temperature is above whatever it is, 38 degrees, you're not allowed in the building. So I think there's a whole load of restrictions that people are going to put in place. And I think, you know, that working out which ones are right and which ones are wrong is going to be the key thing. But for me, testing someone's temperature, especially in Doha, is not a good idea. You're sat in the car, you're hot, it's 45 degrees, you know, you're 39, and then 10 minutes later, you're back down to 37 or whatever it is. So I think like the testing is going to be the key thing. And I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but in Doha now, we haven't had any hand sanitizer for like 4 weeks. So I think I heard Louis Vuitton just changed all of their perfume manufacturers to do hand sanitizers. So you're going to be getting lots of hand sanitizers soon, but maybe not in Doha since they've restricted everything.
What's it going to cost?
That's a good question. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it'll be packaged well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you also, Tom, you mentioned the heat and the temperature there. And has anybody talked about like, well, it's too hot for the virus to thrive? Or like we've heard that a lot, like, oh, when the summer comes, it'll be less of a problem. Has anybody talked about that?
Yeah, I mean, they have. I mean, obviously, and I think we had a doctor on earlier saying hopefully it's like the flu. And again, I was reading these briefings this morning. Apparently, there is some evidence from China that this could have a factor, but they don't think it's a huge. They're not sure if it's going to be a huge factor. So at the moment, it's only 20 to 25 degrees here at the moment. But within a month, it will be up to 35, 40, and then I'll be able to give you a better answer to that question.
Well, great. Thanks for your contributions, Tom. That was very helpful. We wanted to let Colm Smith jump on. Colm, if you want to give us your perspective. Let's see here.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you.
Cool. And can you understand me okay, more importantly?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we can loud and clear. We can understand you. We'll see. There might be some words.
I'm used to it. Just to give you a bit of context, guys, I work in the Women's Super League and the Soccer League in England, so I work at West Ham. So yeah, we've had a weird 2 weeks, I think it's fair to say. Our girls were dismissed last Friday for a deep clean of the training facility, and we haven't been back since. It's kind of, I'd say you guys are similar, that it's completely mixed messages that we're getting. We were told initially that our league was going to restart on the 4th of April. Now that's not. And now it's been pushed back to supposedly May time. But for us, it's just kind of taking it day by day, not even week by week, and just trying to see when our start dates are going to be. Now, my biggest issue in my capacity is actually making sure girls are actually doing something. I asked one girl yesterday, what equipment do you have? Her reply was a 3 kg dumbbell, which is great. So, but then she said her dad has loads of concrete blocks out the back of the house, so improvising at its best. So yeah, it's challenging over here, but it's really interesting to hear what you guys are saying as well, and especially the guys in China. For us, it's kind of unknown. I'm after being down the street this morning, and it's the same as anything in London. People are still going into coffee shops now. You can't sit in a coffee shop, but there's people still queuing in the coffee shop to get a coffee. And the pubs, as I think Tom said there as well, Everton, we only closed last night, so it's kind of weird from our point of view in that we're not allowed to do anything collectively, which is understandable. But then on Thursday or Wednesday, most of our overseas girls were told they can go back home. So out of our squad of 22 players, we have 13 players that are from overseas, but they're now all gone back to their country. So when they come back, they'll probably have to do a block and isolation, which means it's going to be an extra week on top of what is already there. So it's definitely challenging times. But something we just kind of have to knuckle down and get through.
Yeah, and is everybody keeping their cool? Like everybody's like, okay, we have to do this. Or are people getting upset or anxious about it?
To be fair, most of the girls are okay. We have a few girls. To be honest with you guys, the money in a lot of the women's football over here, women's soccer over here, it wouldn't be brilliant money. So a lot of these girls might have little bits on the side to kind of keep them afloat. and that's the bit that could be suffering for most of them. And then they're stressing about that, which means they're not getting to do the program that they should be doing. Then we had a few girls flying. One girl flew back to Canada, another girl that flew back to Australia. So they have jet lag now as well. So it's just trying to manage all them little pieces. But in all, the girls have been brilliant because they realise it's a really small community, women's soccer in England. You all know each other. So they're all on Instagram to each other. So if one's doing a session, then the next person is doing a session. We have girls in our team who are their partners play for different teams. So they're doing double sessions. They're doing her session and then they're doing my session, which is challenging. But to be fair, I think from a football world over here, I think people are kind of getting to do their own little thing for a little while, which for me, I think is fantastic because it gives them a bit of ownership on the program. That's my opinion on that. Like girls are asking me, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, brilliant. You know your body, I don't. So let's just make sure you do them little bits that I sent you also.
Yeah, it's again, we don't know when the end is for this, and just trying to keep people busy, I think, is probably the most important thing. So, but yeah,
it's funny. We had a conversation last week about our off season, sorry, 2 weeks ago, and we're working back from the Olympics, which is the 26th of September is when our girls are due to come back. So it's really interesting to see, okay, well, that's our pre-season gone out the window now, because I think our season, the contracts for players are being continued indefinitely. So our season could finish in July, or they're saying it should be finished early July, late June, with back-to-back games for most of May and most of June, televised behind closed doors, which I don't know what you guys think, but for me, it's not really great for the game. But at the same time, I think TV deals are saying that we have to finish it. It's kind of catch-22, because from a physical side, I want the girls to come back in. Really interesting. One of the guys was saying there, it's like a 7-week window when they come back. So I'd be used to seeing that in pre-season. I've seen that before. And to be fair, it was after 5 weeks when I've seen it before. And it's in soccer, it's more normally rec fem injuries from constantly striking. But that's something that I'm going to have to manage when I come back, because I'm giving the girls running programs and strength programs, and there's very little striking going on because they're in isolation, most of them, or 75% of them.
Yeah, well, everybody's going to be great cyclists when they get back. That's about it. So, which I'm going to get a competitive cyclist to chime in and tell us what she's doing. She's probably doing running and playing soccer and stuff to keep in shape. Callie, well, how are things going for you as a competitive cyclist?
Good. So I came back from Arizona last Saturday. I flew back pretty abruptly. So I'm in my home now with my parents in Prince George, British Columbia. So it's winter here. But I guess with cycling, kind of the good thing about it is that I can ride on the trainer, which is what I've been doing. And then also I haven't ridden outside yet because I've been a bit too cold. But I can ride outside as well, because I don't really want to ride on the trainer every day. I think it's a lot of stress on my knees and stuff and everything. So I'm not going to go ride 4 hours on a trainer. Also, kind of with saying that, all my races have been canceled. So I'm not really sure when the next race is, and I always train backwards. So like I have a goal and a race coming up, so I kind of work backwards from there with my coach. Whereas now I'm not really sure when the next race is, so it's kind of back to, I guess, just seeing like what I can do, and just not overdoing it and getting too excited, because I'm just not sure when the next race is. So
Yeah, you were saying like if you're on the trainer, it's a little harder on your knees. Can you explain that a bit?
yeah, just like with the trainer, I ride on a trainer, like direct drive trainer, not on rollers or anything. So you're constantly pedaling. I mean, obviously you can stop pedaling, but when you're on the road, there's stop signs, you go down a hill, like you kind of stop pedaling more often than not. Whereas on the trainer, you're constantly pedaling. So it's just a lot more stress and pressure, I find, for myself. I've had knee injuries in the past, so I'm kind of balancing it where I'm only going to do like my efforts on the trainer. So that's like maybe like 1.5, 2 hours max on the trainer. And you're kind of breaking up with like whatever efforts you're doing and then like cool down and whatnot. And then when I ride outside, which hopefully I can still do here for now, like I'm in Prince George, there's only 4 cases in northern BC. So I'll just do like my 2-3 hour rides outside with like no efforts or anything because it is a bit colder. And I'm not used to that.
Yeah, coming from Arizona, I'm sure. And
Mm-hmm.
do you have teammates or other people that you've trained with that you're keeping in touch with to see what they're doing?
Yeah, so basically a lot of Canadians were in Tucson, Arizona. So all of my friends went home. A lot of my friends, or a few of them, live in Calgary and Vancouver Island. So kind of like 2 hot spots right now with outbreaks. So most people are just on the trainers. Also, we've all been overseas, supposed to be in isolation. So everyone's just like in the trainer, in their basement, respecting the guidelines of the government at this point.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, can you guys kind of like FaceTime together and do like a competitive Peloton thing? I always wonder when you see like people going to spin class, you're like, really?
I mean, there is Zwift. I personally don't ever ride the trainer because I've always just gone to a warmer climate. But there's Zwift, which is like that competitive racing thing where you are connected online with like people all over the world. I don't think I'll get into that. I'm not really into racing. I don't know. I have a training program with my coach, and I don't know. I think if I get into Zwift racing, I'll just go too hard for no reason. So, but I mean, there are like a few speed skaters who live here who also ride bikes and they're home from Calgary as well. So maybe I'll ride with them. But I think for the next week or 2, I'm still in isolation. So I'll stay by myself.
Okay, well, yeah, stay safe and hopefully it warms up for you there. Thanks a lot, Kelly.
Yeah, every day it's getting warmer, so it's promising.
Kyle, did you want to jump in? You were saying you're organizing some stuff?
Yeah. So, hey, Kelly. We're working with our triple shot youth group. So we've got riders that are mountain bike, road, track, and right now they're all about 8 to, I think 8 is our youngest, but we'll have mostly like 10 to 17-year-olds. And normally we do in the off season one sort of trainer ride, and then we've got multiple rides in different disciplines. So we're trying to figure out ways to get people together. So we're actually using Zoom to figure out, and we've got all of our trainers, like the bike trainers, set up now at everybody's home so that we can set up a Zoom station or Zoom feed, and everybody can ride together. So the kids feel like they're still socializing and they're still having fun doing it. And then one screen will be either we'll probably make one screen like a Tour de France ride or something like that, where the kids can actually just put that up and watch and then talk with each other and have fun. And the coach will organize, or I guess push them with the intervals when we need them to go, and then basically have them stand and kind of mimic whatever the race is, or we'll make a game out of it somehow. But we're trying to organize that right now. We got about 10 to 15 riders that are just kind of cooped up, going a little nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I have 3 kids, so I know what that's like, and I don't think I could stick them on a bike and get 5 minutes out of them. So, so yeah, we're making do. Well, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, that's cool that they'll do that. So,
yeah.
No,
it's just something that we do regularly so that they're used to it. I don't think it's a big stretch for them to do something like this, but it is. I mean, it still sucks being on a trainer and sitting inside when you're looking outside, and it's really nice out in Victoria here.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good. I just want to thank everybody for jumping on. I know you know, I don't have anything to do, so I mean, I do these anyways, but hopefully everybody's managing and we get some positive news soon. But yeah, I don't know. Rob wants to jump in here, and Rob, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I know it's not a great situation, you know, and I just want to reaffirm to everyone. I think, you know, I am quite certain. I'm definitely positive we're going to get through this, right? As I said before, we don't know when it's going to end, but if you think of things this way, and a couple of points I just want to bring out, because I want to try to be positive about this. Okay, so we're in this situation. We're learning about this situation. China has a head start on us. If this thing comes in waves, the next wave, we might have a vaccine. All we could deal with is the here and now. The next wave, we will know how to begin the process a lot better than we're familiar with now, which we knew nothing. So we're going to get through this, and if another wave comes, we'll be better prepared, if not have a vaccine or something going on. If I said to everyone, guess what, next winter the flu is going to be back, no one would be panicking. So just try to keep the panic and the hecticness and all that stuff, just try to keep it to a minimum. Second thing is, if you're in a position of authority, communicate with your athletes, your employees, whatever it is. I've heard 2 times on this Zoomcast that people are frustrated with the IOC, and I would bet it's because of lack of communication. Even if you're not sure what's going on, let them know you're not sure, but you're working on it, and these are the possibilities and timelines if they're, but communicate with people. That will also soften the blow and lessen the panic of this thing. The other thing is that you're all going to be better for this. I'm going to be better for this, as ridiculous as it sounds. You know, when you're with a sports team, you're on a 2 or 3, 4 game losing streak, or you lose 3, 4, 5 races in a row, you start to pay a little bit more attention to the details. Well, right now, all of us are paying attention to the details. So we're going to be better coaches, better businessmen, better therapists, better whatever. And so just to keep carrying that on. And from these experiences, if you're in private business, when times get lean, you'll have some lessons learned. In situations where you have an athlete that has to go home, but they're returned to play, you'll have programs to provide to them never before. All right. A young lady from Delaware, Christine, she said she has people in the Netherlands that are frustrated because they only have certain touches with the ball. Well, guess what? Everybody in the Netherlands have only certain touches with the ball, so you're still going to be competitive. Don't look at it as detraining. Don't look at it as I'm not as good as I used to be. You're still competitive because everybody else is in the same boat. And the last 2 things I'll say to you is this: what are you yourself doing to get better? I speak to board members. I speak to CEOs how to get out of this. I speak to sports coaches and performance coaches. So when our athletes come back, I have better ideas, better programs. I speak to other physical therapists in regards to how can I treat my patients better when they do. What are we doing to get better? Because this is an opportune time when we don't have a lot going on for our own self-professionalism to get better. And then don't forget yourselves. That's the last thing I'll tell you. Because this is a stressful situation, find your outlet, because you need mental breaks, especially if you're in a position of authority and you're responsible for your athletes or employees, whatever it is. Or even if it's just you're an athlete yourself, like Callie, and you know, you just can't be in the room 7 days a week, 24/7, and just on a cycle trainer, right? You'll figure out other ways, just get mental breaks. And so that may carry over some time when you're in a stressful situation, whether business, training, or in competition. You may have found another way to relieve yourself mentally to make you a better athlete. So there's a lot of positive that's going to come out of this, as much as many people don't believe that. Just stay calm. We'll get through this. And that's all I just wanted to end with.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Words of wisdom, always great. You know, I don't know what else to say. Hopefully we can join up again. Hopefully you guys want to get on again in a week or so and see how things are, and hopefully have even more positive news. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I look forward to communicating with all of you very soon.
Thanks, Eric.
Take care, guys.